Hello, everyone. How is everybody? I'm doing good. I'm a little late. Sorry about that. Was kind of been pressed for time a little bit. In fact, if you were on the email list, newsletter list, you know that you got your newsletter just a little bit ago. So I was working on that. And so I've gotten to the microphone here a couple minutes late. I apologize. Like I've always said, all of you are allowed to be late, I am not allowed to be late, but here I was late. So there you go. Hope everybody's doing fine. And it is December 1st, 2021. And before I get into anything, I have to let all of you know that today is my dad's birthday. He is 85. I was talking to him today, and I told him, I don't know if I'm going to make it to 85. Just, you can never be too sure. I think, of course, we know that women live longer than men do by a considerable amount of years, like 6 years or something like that. So my dad making to 85, there aren't too many men out there who make it to 85. Now, unfortunately, my mother, she was 78 when she died, which is about the average age that a woman lives to. So there you go. But so he is 85 today. And he was born December 1st, 1936. Born before World War II. It's crazy. And as I wrote in the newsletter, I can remember when my dad was like 40, which would be like 11 years younger than I am now. It's crazy. I remember when my dad was my age. That would have been 1987. I'd have been in 10th grade. And now I'm that age. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. But happy birthday to Dad. He has a friend, a neighbor. She took him out for lunch today. So they had a good time. And in fact, when I called him, they were still hanging out or whatever. So he's having a nice day up there. Somebody's taking him out for his birthday. And that's more than I usually get, being that I've lived alone most of my adult life, which is fine. So let's see who's in here, and I got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. As usual. Jill says, welcome to the best podcasting live show that airs consistently on a Wednesday. Well, it is a niche market, Jill. It's easy to be the best. Hello, little bit. Thank you for sharing. Screaming, what's going on? Karen, thank you. I'm on. Thank you. I saw that little bit. Going to talk a little bit about that warrant with Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. Jasmine, CR is here. It reminds me of that Kilroy was here, CR. Sharon, Kathy, Marlene, getting ready to eat pizza. You're always eating pizza when we see you, Marlene. Thank you for moderating tonight, Cherie. Betty, lots of interesting topics up for discussion tonight. True, Betty. Hello, Amy. Yep, thank you for all wishing my dad. Melissa, thank you. How are you? Ann and I are here. Well, hello, are you watching on the big TV? I wonder where you've been, Melissa. I don't think I've seen you recently, but I'm getting up in front of the camera like this because I know you watch on that big TV. How do I remember these things? So there you go. Pizza is once a week. What just must happen to be always on Wednesdays, Marlene. Hello, Valerie. Hello. So that was the most important thing, that my dad's birthday. Actually, my nephew John's birthday is tomorrow, December 2nd. He is going to be 36. Can't believe it. I have a nephew my nephew Charlie, who I saw when I was out in Greeley, Colorado. He was born in 78. So he's 43 and I'm 51. Nephew 43, nephew going to be 36 tomorrow. And then I have a niece, Ashley, who is 37. She'll be 38 in February of 2022. This is what happens when you have brothers and a sister who are so much older than you are, that you have nieces and nephews who are almost your age. It's kind of weird. Yes, as Screaming is reminding everybody, as you are watching tonight, just do it right now. Just hit the thumbs up button. You know the live show is going to be good. You just know it. Just give it the thumbs up. You know I come prepared. I take great pride in talking about all these topics that I bring, that I've been doing this for the last 4 years. It seems like it's hard to believe 4 years, but just give it the thumbs up, whether you're watching tonight, tomorrow, if you're watching December 1st, 2089, just give it a thumbs up. I'll be long gone. Just give it the thumbs up. So, so there's that. The other thing, and I can talk about this. I don't mind talking to you about this because I've mentioned it before on here, although it hasn't happened for a while. I had a panic attack yesterday. I did. And I know that I've brought this up before, although I've not had one since before my mother died. It's been that long. I haven't had many of them in my life. Probably this was number 5 or number 6, something like that. But I was here and just doing my work yesterday, and it just came on out of nowhere. I do notice, there seems to be some commonalities between when they happen. It's like if I'm watching a video or something, I just don't know what it is. But man, for about a half hour, my brain was just going like that. And I had to stop doing what I was doing, kind of take all the sensory perception away, close my eyes, turn any volume, no sound, nothing. And I could still feel the effects today. Now I'm feeling like kind of myself. But man, my brain was buzzing. And what it feels like, I know, like I said, I know that I've brought this up before, but I haven't had one recently. So I'm talking about this from just yesterday. That it feels like every thought that I've ever had in my head is trying to come to the forefront all at one time. Like any thought on any topic ever entering my mind, it's all coming back. And I just have to close my eyes. I try to control my breathing and just then let it pass. But if any of you've had them, what then happens afterwards? If you haven't had them, this is what it feels like afterwards. It kind of feels, your brain kind of feels like if you've ever worked out, doing a bicep curl or something to the point of exhaustion, like your bicep muscle, you just can't do it, and it's just, it doesn't even feel like a muscle anymore. It just feels like a sponge. That's kind of what your brain feels like after one of these things. It just feels like it's just worn out. And still, I ended up getting work done yesterday. I actually typed up a couple interview outlines last night, completely fine, but I could continue to feel, it was really bad for like a half hour. Then it kind of went away, but I could still kind of feel the after effects. And even in today, I slept fine last night, had some great dreams and everything. But this morning I got up still kind of feeling it. And it wasn't really until this afternoon, I went to see my sports psychologist today, talked to her about it. It wasn't until I kind of got home today that I felt like myself again. It was like a 24-hour thing. And it was something. And I haven't had one for a while. It's just, I think it just has some, I don't know. I was talking about it once again with my sports psychologist today, and everybody is triggered by different things. I guess I was due, being that I hadn't had one for about 3 years or over 3 years. I guess I was due, because up to that point, I would say I had my first one back in like 2014 or 2015. And it seems like once a year I would have one for seemingly no reason. Once a year. And then 2018 was the last one. And then until yesterday. So over 3 years. They're no fun. You do feel like you're losing your mind. I mean, absolutely. And you just wonder, is it ever going to go away, is the thing? And it eventually does, but it's no fun. And I know the first time I had one, I thought I was losing my mind. I thought, am I having a stroke? Am I having an epileptic seizure? Am I having an aneurysm? What's going on here? And in fact, the first one I had was when I still lived down in Muir Beach. I lived by myself. When it started happening, I walked outside because I thought I was going to like faint or collapse or something, or blackout. And I didn't want to be in my place and, people find me like a week later. So I actually went outside and waited until it passed. Of course, at the time, I didn't really know what it was. Now I do know. So CR says, well, I'm surprised I get anxiety at Walmart. I think you're working too hard. CR, I don't know about that. Trust me. If any of you know anywhere, I'm the person who has the least reason to worry about anything. Truthfully, I know that. And so I didn't have this because I was stressed out or anything. Having it causes panic and stress, but it's like a chicken and egg. The egg, which came first? I can tell you that these things are not brought on by me being stressed or anything else. They are brought on, I believe, by something in the subconscious. There does seem to be a thing about me. Every time one is hit, I've been watching something on a screen. Every time. It's always been when I've been in a closed quarters, like my apartment down there, my apartment here. It's never happened out in public. It's never happened when I've been in a car. It's never happened while I've been disc golfing, where I do get stressed and, going to the dentist, getting stressed. Never happened anything like that. It just seems to happen at home, by myself, screen. I don't know what it is, but I was feeling it. I'm pretty much back to feeling like myself now, but it is crazy. It just, as I was explaining it, way it feels, another way to put it, you know how paint mixers, if you're trying to get the right kind of paint or something, you'll put like red and blue, all these paints dumping into something, and then they'll shake it to try to mix it up. That's what it feels like. It feels like the paint's being, all the different thoughts in your mind are being poured in somewhere, and then somebody hits the mixer button and it all gets combined. That's what it feels like in your brain, all the things getting mushed together. So, I don't know what to tell you. There certainly is no, unless I was to be hooked up to something like an MRI machine or something right at the time that it's happening. I just don't know what's going on. I mean, people who know me well are not surprised that my brain kind of goes, sometimes anyway. So there's that. But I'm fine. But I thought all of you'd want to know, because I know some of you probably suffer the same way, probably a lot worse than I do, and more often, everything else. So please hang in there, because it is scary. Yeah, the search warrant with Molly and Colt. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to talk about that a little later. Hello, Raising. What's going on? You got a nephew or niece that's 36 a little bit. How about that? Jill says TIPP skills to get out of the panic attacks. It usually works for me. Subconscious is a fun little beast. It is. It certainly is in the subconscious, Jill. It feels like things like way back here trying to come up, to the forefront for sure. They can be exhausting, Amy. Tell me about it. Hello, Linda. You're allowed to be late. I was a little late tonight, Linda. Valerie says we just got back from the happiest place, Disneyland in California. Valerie, okay. I guess they're making you wear masks, and what kind of protocols are they using there, Valerie? Sabrosa says that was smart to go outside. I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah. I think it is, Sabroso. As much as I've lived by myself since 1998, you think about these things. If something happens, what are you going to do? There's nobody else here. So, of course, if something like that happens, what can you do? If you have a heart attack, if you're dead before you hit the floor, then it doesn't matter. You could have 100 people here. It doesn't matter. And they could all be cardiologists. You're still going to be dead. But for certain things like that, Sabrosa, I've thought about this before. What am I going to do? And so I guess I would at least, I had a little planning ahead, but never did I think it would be because of a panic attack like that. Thank you, Julia. I am feeling better. Thank you. Been drinking a lot of water today. Maybe you should wear blue light blocking glasses. Hadn't thought about that, CR. Maybe I'll look into that. I'll see if that's a real thing. Screaming says, only ever had a panic attack once. It's not fun. And the thing is that I think for people who haven't had it, they think what's brought on by stress, a panic attack where you're having something happen because you're panicking, because you're stressed. I'm guessing that's the way for some people, not for me. Might have come out of nowhere. So it's the panic happens because of the attack, not due to it. Amy says, I'm going to be talking about the Brian Shaffer video for sure after I get through all this personal stuff, Amy. Thank you. There we go. Everything. Switch your cam, PN Ed. Next time we watch out for you, mate. Thanks. Yes, thank you. Yeah, maybe I should have like this live streaming. No, you don't want that. That sounds a little too risque. But people do that, I guess, right? There are people who get paid. I guess it's kind of porn, kind of like they have cameras all over their house and it's live streaming all the time. People do that. Yeah, well, I appreciate that, everything. But the funny thing is, if I were to have cameras set up all in this place, at least to the point of still being PG rated, you would find out how really boring I am. I am a very, very boring guy. I'm telling you. It's one of the reasons I joke that I don't have a dog or anything. I would bore an animal to death. Seriously, I would bore it to death. A little bit says I have anxiety and panic attacks a lot. Well, I got to say a little bit. It always seems like you have something going on. So I can't say that I'm surprised given that I follow you on Facebook and how much we've talked over the last few years. Valerie says Disneyland was really not bad. Masks on rides when you're on it, but not in line around the park. The new Star Wars rides are so fun. I hope to make it back to Disney World over in Orlando one of these times soon, Valerie. We'll see. Julia says, the few times I've ever had a panic attack, it's been at the most random times when I'm not feeling any more or less stressed than usual. That's the way I am too, Julia. Yeah. Thanks, Amy. Panic attacks do come and go out of nowhere. Yeah. CR says, I've watched YouTubers who fall asleep live. That's crazy. Thanks, everything. I got you. Thank you. Are you sure they're panic attacks? Some types of seizures could seem like a panic attack. Uh, TD, all I can tell you is that it's all up here. I will try to keep track of my heart rate. Nothing unusual. It's not like it causes me like a nervous stomach, which sometimes I get before it. Like when I get nervous going to the dentist, playing disc golf, back when I used to play the piano for everybody and everything, I get nerves in my stomach. My stomach starts to churn and I get butterflies. Nervous for me is not usually a head thing. And even during this, no nerves, nothing going on, which the stomach or anything. It's all up here. But my brain does get scrambled. I mean, to the point like I have to start thinking, what year is it? How old am I? I really have to think through those things for a few minutes. It's true. What year is it? Is it 2022? Is it 2020? Am I 50? Am I 51? Am I 52? Like, I have no problem with memory. I can recite like when I was born, August 1st, 1970, and my address and everything, but really feeling in the moment, like knowing what is happening right at that second, the date, my age and things can sometimes be a little hard to figure out for a few minutes. It's just the way it is. Wasn't stressed. I was just talking to my friend on the phone, catching up, and bam, out of nowhere, panic attack. It's so weird. You can't be too boring. We tune into your shows weekly to hear what you say. Well, Sabrosa, I do this. I do this because I enjoy these live shows. I keep saying I don't understand why more people don't do them in the true crime community. I enjoy talking about some of these things, both personal and public. But really, I live my life in a very, very boring way. I'm a no drama type of person, really. No, I don't get rapid heartbeat with a panic attack. No. I will tell you, I suffer from panic attacks as a nurse. Power through it. Your mind messing with you. Mind was certainly once messing with me, Valerie. Raising. I had one once driving home from falling a check off at nursing school. I had an hour drive home thinking I was having a heart attack. Yeah. Luckily, I've not had any out there in public, in a car, operating any machinery or anything else. Luckily. So, yeah, that's my panic attack. It even happens to the best of us. Moving on. Did a little disc golfing this past weekend, a little practice. Played on Sunday. Actually played today, practicing a little bit. Filmed myself throwing, kind of working on my form after I went to my sports psychologist. Felt great out there. Threw the discs very well. So the panic attack did not affect that. And then I came home. I stopped actually at the grocery store, came home and finished the newsletter, sent it out. If you're on the email list, look for it in your inbox. Really don't have a tournament, PDGA rated tournament for like 2.5 more weeks. So I'll be doing some practicing and going to the club over at Taylor on Sundays. Maybe try to check out a couple other courses in the meantime. Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a lot of good turkey, stuffing, pumpkin pie, mashed potatoes, because that's what I had. And it was fantastic, but it was just a small Thanksgiving. Just me, my brother Brian, his wife Laureen. She cooked. We had a good time. One of her daughters is now in Iowa, so she couldn't join us. And then her other daughter had somewhere else to go. So it was just the three of us. And that was fine. And I was there most of the day, watched a little football, ate too much. But I'm still in the 170s as far as my weight, looking good, feeling good. So didn't trash the diet that I continue to be on. But it was a good day. And then, so I hope all of you did something interesting and fun, got to see people you know and love on Thanksgiving. My dad went, his neighbor took him to her family's get together. It was like 12 people. And I guess the cook must really do it up. There were like 2 turkeys and all sorts of craziness, crazy dishes. And so my dad really got treated well at Thanksgiving. And so I'm happy about that. Hey, K-Dog, what's going on? Hope all is well. I'm doing well now, K-Dog. I just got through talking about my panic attack I had yesterday. And then finally, as far as stuff going on the personal front, I'm in a football pick'em league. It's called Hood Ball. And there's about over 20 people in this. And all we do is pick winners and, the winners each week. And what are we? We're going into week 13, I think. And I'm not watching many of the games. Can you believe I'm 1 game out of first place? I've only picked 1 fewer winning game than the leader right now. I'm 1 pick out of first place going into week 13. And there's some big bucks on the line. Each person puts in $20. There's like $400 on the line for this. So, there's a person in first, and I'm actually tied with somebody else for second place. There's kind of like 4 or 5 of us that have kind of separated from the rest of the group. But it is tight with, they do 18 weeks now. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 6 weeks to go, and I'm 1 game out of first place. Pretty happy about that. Pretty happy about that, even though I will admit I'm not watching a lot of games, and I'm just kind of eyeballing them and saying, I guess I'll pick this one. I guess I'll pick that one. And it seems to be working out. Who would have thunk it? So those are some of the things that are going on in my personal life. Yes, Hajira. Yeah, my father's birthday is today. Thank you. Anything else going on in the personal side of things? Paid the rent today. My realtor who found me this place, who I pay every month, her office is actually on the premises here. She's moving down the street at the beginning of next year. So from now on, when I pay my rent, I'm going to have to go down the street. And I don't know, been using my George Foreman grill a lot, chicken and steak, made some wings this past weekend. And then doing all the Unfound work that I do. And I've been very busy, very, very busy. So there you go. Let's move on to the items. Let's get a little bit into the true crime focused part of the program. And once again, I have some things to show you. I got a package today from Michelle Holcomb, a professor at Northwestern State University. Remember, I spoke there back in October. She sent me a package. And I want to show you some of these things. She sent me a card. I got this all today. She sent me a card. And it says, thank you, right there. And it says, Dear Ed, with sincere thanks and appreciation, thank you so much for coming. Wishing you a wonderful Thanksgiving, Michelle Holcomb. You will always have friends here. You are welcome back anytime. How about that? So there you go. Got a card from her. I got this very nice letter from her, and I'll read it to you. I actually posted a picture of it on Facebook, but if you're not on Facebook, I'll read it. Dear Mr. Dentzel, I'm writing on behalf of the Department of Criminal Justice, History, and Social Science at Northwestern State University. We extended our appreciation for your appearance at our university on October 12th, 2021. Your presentation on Missing Persons 101 was seen by more than 60 students, faculty, and staff. We truly appreciate your time and effort that you put into bringing this presentation to our campus. The students and faculty alike were enamored with the information, and you brought about topics that many of our students have never before considered. Your expertise in this area is something that is needed in our current criminal justice field. Thank you again for your time, and you are invited back to NSU anytime. With sincere appreciation, Michelle Holcomb, Assistant Professor, Criminal Justice Coordinator. So there you go. I got that today. Once again, I posted a picture on Facebook if you're on there. And then finally in that package, I got a couple glasses. I got glasses from Kelly Bruce, my friend of the program and friend of mine, Kelly Bruce, like a month ago. And I got these two glasses. I'm putting fingerprints all over them, but I got two glasses there. And I don't drink alcohol. So maybe I'll be putting some Publix diet iced tea in here, maybe some sparkling apple cider in here with some ice. That's what will probably be going in these glasses at some point in the future, but they are nice. So there you go. A couple glasses. And if you can't read it, thank you for being awesome is what it says. So cool. All right, just never know. Just walk down, and she did tell me she sent me a package, but she didn't tell me what was in it. And so I was, of course, ecstatic. Whatever she was sending, I was, of course, going to be excited about it. So there you go. And I have to get working on some, once again, so busy, so many things to do. Send out some more messages to colleges, but having that letter, also the videos that I've made, the highlight videos on YouTube on this channel right here, can help, they'll get to see what, what I'm all about. All right, let's move on to the Beatrice Viela poll. Had friend of the program, blogger, crime blogger 1983.blogspot.com, Anthony, back on the program. Good to have him back. This is fifth time. Breaking all sorts of records with that fifth appearance. And the poll that I had in the discussion group was, how sure are you that Oscar caused Beatrice's BB's disappearance? And it was kind of a tie between 100% sure and very, very sure. And the think tank really did not get into that too much, how sure people were, but suffice to say, most people thought that Oscar was the instigator of this disappearance. Hard to say what the motive might have been or where it happened, but he was the instigator. I came to that conclusion on the Patreon blog, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You know that by now. But that was only a part of what I wrote about in the blog this week. I also wrote about what would have happened had, instead of Beatrice disappearing in 1980, if she disappeared in, in 2010 or 2015, in this technological era with cell phones, social media, cameras, and all those things. How would we look at this disappearance differently? What would we do? What would we be looking for? And most importantly, of course, this is 41 years later. Her disappearance isn't solved. If her disappearance happened now, would it be solved? And I think the odds are a little better that it would be, but we've covered so many disappearances, kind of just like Beatrice's, where you have all that information and these disappearances are still unsolved. So technology is not a guarantee. It's certainly a tool. It can help, but there's certainly not a guarantee of this. So I don't think that we can automatically think if she would have disappeared now that Oscar or whoever could have been charged with her disappearance or murder immediately. I don't think there's any proof of that. I think we have enough information, experience to know that cell phones and social media, video, and everything else, unless it's really, really, really explicit, don't necessarily bring these disappearances to a resolution. Thank you, everything. Sabrosa says, great letter and gift. Yeah. Great show with Anthony. Yeah, Anthony's a great guest. He knows his material. He's well-spoken. He takes it seriously. That's why he's been on the program 5 times. Sabrosa says, you're growing a very impressive resume. Sabrosa, I've been doing it 5 years. Over 230 disappearances covered now. I love talking to people about missing persons cases. I've loved going to these schools, talking to these students, taking their questions, meeting the faculty, getting the PowerPoint presentation together. I'm all about all of that. That's where I really feel like, sometimes even more than recording these episodes and everything, that's really, I feel very comfortable in that environment. So little by little, that's how you do that. Sabrosa, I would compare it to starting a band. You have to start playing at a bar somewhere where there's, only two people, but you're working on your shtick. You're working on the band's working on its cohesion, writing songs, working on their ability to sing and play and everything. And you just have to keep doing that and building and building and building. And so that's the way I'm looking at this too. Everything still takes good old fashioned police work, but social media can help with getting faces out there. It can, no doubt. And under certain circumstances, everything, certainly the internet, GPS, everything certainly helps. Certainly. But we also know so many cases where none of that stuff shows anything. And we're amazed that it happens, but it does. Hello, Seashore. Screaming. Yeah, everybody remember to hit that thumbs up button. If you're watching on, I know maybe for some of you, Melissa, maybe watching on your TV is a little difficult. But for all of you watching on your tablet, your phone, your laptop, your desktop, if you could, give this video a thumbs up as you're watching. Seashore says it is all about who you meet along the way. I've met a lot of great people so far. And I think that they've certainly had good things to say about me, as you could see with the letter, and that builds credibility for the next step. Hello, Delane. There's Delane. I was just thinking, where's Delane? And there she is. Hello, Delane. Let's move on to the next topic. Maybe some of you saw that Mike Moran died. A guy who was on trial in Portsmouth, Ohio for sex trafficking and all sorts of charges. But he's 75 years old. He died earlier this week. I wrote about it for the newsletter. And I think anybody who saw Mike Moran would say he wasn't exactly the picture of health. I read that he did have diabetes. He had some heart issues. And so maybe it just not be a surprise that he is not with us anymore. And I'm sure there was, he's had a very stressful past year. What does this mean for Megan Lancaster's disappearance? I think that's very much up in the air. I don't think that him dying makes solving her disappearance any more difficult. I don't think it makes it any easier. Certainly, now I don't know what's going to happen. Will the prosecution eventually show the case that they were going to use against Mike? No. I don't know. But I have to admit that he sounds like a horrible guy. And he certainly could have done those things, but I really did not think there was going to be anything necessarily coming out in the trial that would lead to new avenues of inquiry for Megan's disappearance. I've said since the beginning, since I found out about Megan's disappearance, that I just don't think he had anything to do with it. I think the two knew each other, but Megan knew a lot of people who probably had nothing to do with her disappearance. So there's that. And of course, unfortunately, Katie, Megan's sister-in-law, she died. It seems like yesterday, but it's maybe been a couple months now. She died a couple months ago. And she believed that Mike Moran had something to do with it, or at least knew. And Katie and I differed on that, but in the end, maybe she'll proven to be right. Maybe. So he is not with us anymore. Where that's going to take everything else, I think there were some other people who are also charged. Maybe they're awaiting trial. How that's going to affect their trials, I don't know. But in taking an interest in Mike Moran's trial, I was more going to be looking at how much are we going to find out about corruption overall in Portsmouth, Ohio. I have to admit that Megan's disappearance was just kind of off to the side here because I'm not convinced he's connected to it. But I certainly would be interested in hearing on how he was able to do this for all these years and everybody just let it go. That is still an important topic to me. Where were the good people all these years? I don't know if we're ever going to find that out now. Thank you, Seashore. Seashore at the up. Thanks, Valerie. I appreciate that. You're very kind. You're very kind. So Mike Moran, deceased. So we have two major people connected to, certainly connected to Megan, her sister-in-law, Katie, who died a couple months ago, and now Mike Moran, who died at the beginning of this week. I think he was in jail when this happened. Was it a heart attack or something? Probably. Moving on. Now, I know a lot of you had asked me a question. This came up on Monday morning, and I'm going to explain how this all happened because so many people have asked me because I posted it in the group. But everything about this Brian Shaffer video that I posted on Monday, you're going to get the entire story right now. As you know, I am not an expert on Brian Shaffer's disappearance. As far as in the public, non-law enforcement people, I consider Kelly Bruce to be the expert. She and I know each other very well. Of course, just a month ago, she sent me those glasses that I showed you with Unfound etched in them. Kelly Bruce did that. And I continue to talk to her once in a while. But being what I do, covering a different disappearance every week, I will never be an expert on any particular disappearance. Even like Cameron Remmers, where I worked on it personally behind the scenes for almost all of 2019. I still would not say that I'm necessarily an expert on it, even though I did find a few things that hadn't been found before. So you have to keep that in mind as I continue through this. I'm not a Brian Shaffer disappearance expert. Covered it. Had Kelly on the program. I got to know it well enough so I could ask the important questions of her when she was on the program. But she can certainly spout off every nuance to his disappearance, but she can do that better than I can. And the guests for all of these episodes could do that better than I can. As I portray myself, and I am, when I go to talk to these schools so far, I tell them I'm not an expert on any particular disappearance. My job is to look at the entire disappearance community, all of these cases, and try to figure out what can we learn, where are the mistakes being made, where can the improvements be made, are the commonalities between different types of disappearances that can help us learn about disappearances even better. That's what I'm trying to do. So on Monday morning, she sends me a small clip. Hi, Ed, all the way from New Zealand. So glad to make the live New Zealand. That's just crazy. Well, thank you for tuning in, Sandcat. Thank you for tuning in. Good to see you. Must be late morning, early afternoon in New Zealand or something like that. Thanks, Amy. So I'm going to talk about this now. So if I can't read your chats, comments, please forgive me. So on Monday morning, she sends me a small clip of video from that show that came out, when was it? A week and a half ago. And I watched it. And at first, I have to admit, it didn't really catch my eye too much. And then she said something about, I could go back and exactly, but something about his hand, the purse, look how close he is to her. And it wasn't even Kelly who noticed this. It was somebody else that she's been working with. So fortunately, I had DVR'd that episode of Real Life. What was it called? Real Life Nightmare. I had DVR'd it. It's still saved on my DVR. So I'm in bed on Monday morning after she'd sent me that, I'm DVRing to that part. And I get to the part that all of you know that I diagrammed in that video. And I'm like, why hasn't anybody noticed this before? And shortly after that, I discovered why, is because most of the other videos that have been made public over the years are cropped. And I explained that I'm not going to try to do this on here because I can't show you the picture and everything else. But it's obvious in the past when they've shown Brian outside the Ugly Tuna with those two girls, there was still more video at the bottom of the screen to be seen, but it was cropped out. And the reason they did that is because they could zoom in on Brian himself, or on his face. When really, what you see when you see the real video, when it's zoomed out and you can see more of it, the important part was not his head in that picture. It was what the rest of him was doing. And that's why I said in that video, if you've watched it, that it's just amazing that I made the point. I kind of lost my train of thought. Probably after effects of this panic attack, that the police should never edit video. Just put it out there. Just put it out. It's okay. Just put it out there. I realize there may be some people in there. If you need to blur out their faces, I get it. But just publish the video and let people watch it. If it's 10 minutes, if it's an hour, 10 hours, get a website, put it up there and just put it on your YouTube channel. You'll get thousands and thousands of hits. Put advertising on there and the police department can collect a couple bucks. Just do it. So once I watched that, I was like, oh, the video we've seen all these years is not the entire video. And so I kept watching it, DVRing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Kelly and I are talking back and forth. And, in retrospect, I think what I ended up showing in the video that I did was something different than what she was trying to show me when she sent me this message on Monday morning. She was concentrating more on when he was up against her, like his stomach up against her purse, and his hands are down, like by his side, or one's in his pocket, whatever he was doing. I looked at that, but I was more concerned, as I showed in the video, about when he kind of went behind her and she kind of went away, and then his hand went out like this. His hand was in his pocket. He pulls something out, goes like that, and then pulls his arm real quickly back and kind of steps away. Well, if you've ever watched any pickpockets, you can watch those videos on YouTube, people getting caught doing that. It kind of looks like that. It kind of looks like that. And I watched it, DVR, and as you saw, I was having problems with my DVR working it, and because DVRs just aren't meant for that kind of precision. Luckily, I think I did an okay job with it, even though I was kind of doing everything on the fly. I did not plan out what I was going to do. I was like, all right, I'm going to set the camera up. I'm going to point it at the TV. I'm going to get it rolling, and I'm just going to do something. That's where my improv experience comes in. And I am now convinced. Now, I'm convinced that he did drop something in her purse. Pretty convinced. Now, I think it's a phone. Some people have said other things, and there are even people saying, well, it just looks like he's like tapping her or something. But I would argue that that is not how a man taps a woman. You know, if you're trying to cozy up to a woman, your hand is like, is like this. It's like that coming in from the side. He did this. That was this action, not this action. And I think from another picture, you can see how she was holding her purse and she had her hand go up, which means the straps would slide down. And so the purse would be dropping lower and it was like at her side, and he could have easily done that. And what I've done, although I haven't made the video public, but it is an unlisted video on this channel that I had my assistants and Kelly look at. What I did was I filmed just that little part of him stepping away and doing this, like those few seconds. I put it on a loop for like a minute. So it's like about 8 seconds loop, 8 seconds, 8 seconds, 8 seconds back over and over and over and over and over. The more you watch it, the more it's hard to deny that he was not putting something in her purse. And I know this is very controversial. Very, very controversial. It's crazy. I know it's crazy. But you can't deny what you see either. You can't deny that. And so that's how that all happened. And Kelly and I were going back and forth, and she's getting phone calls. And I really did not write down any notes of the things that Kelly and I talked about. Even if I did, I probably couldn't talk to you about some of the stuff anyway. But let's just say on Monday, Kelly and I had a lot of back and forth. I got permission to do that video from her. She watched it first before I made it public for all of you, just to make sure that I was getting everything right, because she was the one that let me know. And it was her or one of the people that works with her that originally, caught this. So I didn't want to feel like I was trying to overstep my bounds. In fact, I do that a lot with guests. When I find out something or whatever, I always go to them first before I go to any of you, to the public. Let's talk about it. What do you want? What do you think about this? Even with Cameron Remmers, everything that I did in 2019, I was working on that, and I was going to his family when, some of these things, I was discovering. So I didn't want her to feel like I was just taking the reins from her, and Kelly and I are cool anyway. But I never want anybody to feel like that. It's Bryant Shaffer's disappearance is hers. She's worked so hard on it. She has her own program doing it. So I'm not here to overshadow her. Fine for me. She gets all the attention. But the advantage that I have is that I have experience looking at video and diagramming it and analyzing it for all of you. As you know, I do all these map analysis and everything. I have that kind of experience. I also have experience being in front of a camera that maybe Kelly doesn't. She's not used to doing these things. So I was more than happy to do this. She looked at it. She thought it was great. And so I posted it. But I don't want anybody to think that I was like just sitting around on a Monday morning going through that video and discovered this myself. That is not true. She was the one who put me onto it. And then I started looking at it, even though I still think that what she was showing me and what I eventually caught are kind of two different things. But without her contacting me on Monday morning, I know that I would have never looked at that. Now, this just shows you how easily these things can go by, and we just kind of take them for granted. We get used to looking at something so much, we don't pay attention to it. Then somebody comes along and says, hey, wait a minute. And that's what happened here. So now the big question, of course, the next question is, well, if he slipped, I believe it's his phone. If it's his phone, then why has she never brought it forward? Now, I know she's probably going to be watching this, and this is just a theory. The video's not doctored. You can watch it for yourself. Does it look like he's putting something in her purse? I would say yes. But there are, even seeing that, I don't think that I would have thought too much about it, even though, seeing that video. But there are other things that go along with that were covered in my interview with Kelly, or she has talked about it on her own program, or it's been written about somewhere on Reddit, on Web Sleuths, or wherever else. Two other big things. Brian's phone did ping in the immediate area after the ugly tuna that night. There's that. That's important because, and I'm not using their names, and I didn't use their names in the video either, but the purse girl, I'm just going to call her Purse Girl. The Purse Girl lived very, very close to the ugly tuna. Very close. Easily within walking distance. In fact, the other girl did too. But I'm just going to concentrate on Purse Girl. Purse Girl lived very close. So it very well could be that he slipped the phone into her purse. Of course, she didn't know it. So she just walks home with Brian's phone in her purse. So there's that. That's a possibility. But the other thing that's important is we've known about this ping that happened in Hilliard, Ohio. Remember that? There was a ping of his phone. Some people think it's something. Some, people think that it was a mistake. You heard about his girlfriend. She was calling. Then at one time it actually rang and everything else. Well, his phone pinged in Hilliard, Ohio. Well, guess what? You could take it for what it's worth, but this is a fact. This girl's mother lives in Hilliard, Ohio. Now, Ohio is a big state. There are a lot of towns there. It's a fairly populated state. Not, of course, as big as Florida, but pretty big. A lot of people live there. A lot of little towns. And what are the odds that his phone would ping in the town where her mother lives? So there are things to believe then that this girl did have his phone. Now, what I want to get across to all of you is it is very possible she had his phone and did not know it. Very, very important point to remember. Why? Because he slipped the phone into her purse. Now, I'm not a woman, obviously. But what I think I know about women, especially early 20-something-year-old women, is they usually have 3 or 4 or 5 purses. So I could see a situation where she's out on the town that takes a certain kind of purse to go with that, with whatever outfit she's wearing. He slips the phone into her purse. She goes home, takes some of her stuff out, but not everything out of it. And the phone's still in there, and she doesn't even know it. So it's sitting there at her house or apartment, and it's pinging, hence the reason it was so close to that area. It was pinged in that area. Then it goes dead. Eventually, it has to go dead. Then, at some point, she uses that purse again. She takes it to her mother's. She gets to her mother's. Maybe she's going through her purse and she finds this phone. Whose phone's this? I mean, we know how we'd all act. If I found somebody else's phone, let's say in my computer bag, of course I don't carry a purse, but If I found a phone in my computer bag, which I put my laptops in, like when I travel, I'd be like, what the heck is this doing here? And it would probably be dead. And I'd be like, well, if I want to get this back to somebody, I got to charge it up. So what'd she do? She's at her mother's. She takes a charger. She plugs it in. It comes on. And within about 30 seconds, she knows exactly whose it is. Because she would turn it on. There'd, of course, be all these calls, and then maybe she'd start looking through the numbers, and it would occur to her, I think this is Brian Shaffer's phone. Now, you have to remember something. At that point that she would discover that this phone is Brian's, he would have been missing for like a month. Now, how would you feel? Think about it. Seriously, think about it. How would you feel if you did that? You knew that you and he were together that night. You find his phone in your purse. He's missing, and people think that he was murdered. I think there are many people, of course, depending on their personality and everything else, I think there are a lot of people who would say, man, if I hand this phone in, and is anybody really going to believe that I had his phone for a month and then I didn't know it? I know I would be telling a truthful story, but is anybody really going to believe that? Is anybody going to believe that he slipped his phone into my purse and I didn't know it? I mean, given the video, that's what kind of looks like happened, but she wouldn't know. All she'd know is the phone's in my purse. How did it get there? Man, this looks bad. And I can see a situation where somebody might just say, you know what? I didn't have anything to do with his disappearance, and I'm just making it all go away. What I think I know about all this stuff is that makes a lot of sense to me. That's not necessarily what I would do, I don't think. But you just have to remember, even to this day, how much attention Brian Shaffer's disappearance has gotten. It still gets a lot of attention. It got a lot of attention back then. Guy goes into a bar, never comes out. So you just have to put yourself in her shoes. It's very easy for us to say, oh yeah, if I found this phone, I'd be turning it in, but you have to look at the circumstances. First of all, on top of everything else, she was drunk. They admitted that. Both of them admit they were very drunk that night. In addition, they had a car there. They shouldn't have been driving, no matter if they lived close or not. They had both of those girls admitted they were drunk. That would be something else. And then she might be thinking, you know what? I really don't remember a lot about that night. Could it be that something did happen and I don't remember it because I was so sloshed? And that, yes, he and I did go somewhere and something did happen in his phone. Hey, as we all know, I don't know how all of you are, but I'm 51. I never have been a drinker, but certainly I was enough drinkers, both men and women, back in my early 20s, who would get so wrecked that the next day they wouldn't remember things that they did. And we're talking people who have become very, very fine adults, very fine people. But 30 years ago, they were living the life a little bit on the edge, and they would get, drink after drink after drink, throw up, pass out, up the next day. I would tell them, you know what you did last night? And he'd go, no, I don't remember. So that has to be figured into all of this as well. But to me, that theory fits what we know. If you are to accept that that was his phone that he slipped into her purse. Now, some people say, well, it could be her phone. Well, he put it back in her purse. Well, then I have to start thinking, why was her phone in his pocket in the first place? Did he steal it? Did he do some sort of playing around or something? Um, we just don't know. To me, that seems like less probable because I think a reason people are defaulting to that because they can't understand that. Well, surely if she found his phone, that she would have turned it in. I'm not convinced of that because what makes no sense to me was him having her phone and him secretly dropping it back in her purse again. I mean, if there's some other things that I could say, but this would be, I wasn't party to the conversation, but Kelly has talked to this girl in the past. She told me some things and I really don't want to get into that, but, let's just put it this way. It's hard to understand why he would have her phone in his pocket and then slip it back. Did he put his phone number on it? Well, if he wanted to give her his phone number, could he just not done it? Could he just not said, I'd like for you to call me. I don't know what guy would do this, but I'd like for you to call me sometimes. So give me your phone and I'll put my number in it so you can call me. I guess you could do that. Why have to be so secretive about everything? Of course, my theory goes against what I guess I kind of think happened in this situation, what I wrote about back in May when Kelly was on the program. But it certainly would start leading back toward the idea that he really did want to leave his life. He put his phone in that purse. Why? Misdirection. It'll start pinging this way, and he's going that way. It's pinging to the left. I'm going to the right. Very, very easily. Very easily. Could have been what he's planned, and he found the perfect person to do it. This girl, drunk, kind of giggling around. You can see how she and the other girl are acting. And he found somebody that he could take advantage of. That's the way I see it. But like I said, there are other things that have gone on with this particular girl in which Kelly has had. I've never talked to this girl. I know her name. I know both of these girls' names are out there, but I'm not going to use them. But I've not had any interaction with either of them. Kelly has had a lot of interaction with both of them, although not really, really, really recently. And there have just been some things that have gone on with Purse Girl with Kelly that I was not a party to. She's told me about. They also could kind of lead us in the direction that I'm talking about. And as an experienced interviewer now, 230 disappearances covered, like 300 interviews I've done for the program over the last 5+ years. Kelly has talked to her. Kelly has interviewed her, and myself being an interview, some of the things that she told Kelly would put a lot of question marks in my mind. I'm not saying she had anything to do with the disappearance. In fact, I know I'm convinced she had nothing to do with the disappearance. I'm convinced of it. I'm not saying she's a guilty party or anything. And I'm not even technically blaming her if what I'm describing actually happened. I can understand how somebody might be worried that if they were out in the town, got drunk, that night is kind of hazy, but they know that this guy, that she met this guy, his name was Brian. They got along really well. Kind of sort of remember that. And then, a month down the road, she finds his phone and she knows all of the craziness that has been going on. I can understand why somebody might not want that kind of attention. Certainly. So that's how that all happened. The video is still posted, and it's up there for all of you to see. I diagrammed it as best I could, even though I was fighting my DVR most of the time. And I will say, if this contradicted some other things that we know were facts, then I'd think, well, maybe something else was going on here. But his phone being in her purse kind of causes other information that has been somewhat unexplainable or even discarded because we're not even sure it's true. Thinking or believing, putting his phone in her purse kind of causes all those things to suddenly line up. Now, why didn't anybody do this before? Because nobody really entertained the idea that he would have put his phone in some other person's pocket or purse. Second of all, that video, we never got to see the whole thing until, and I don't mean whole time as far as time, I mean as far as picture. If I'm this close to the camera, you don't know what kind of shirt I'm wearing, but I back away, and there you go. That's the difference. That's kind of what was going on. They cropped the video so his head was a lot bigger. If they had just left it the way it was, then you could see everything else, and that's what you see on that video. And you know me, I'm not one for conspiracies and hyperbole and sensationalism or anything else. You know me. You know that by now. You could say a lot of things about me, but I am certainly not a sensationalist. And what I see in that video from Brian Shaffer, as a guy myself who is heterosexual, is interested in women, is not the actions or movements of a guy who was trying to necessarily smooth up to women. That whole step away with the arm going like this, once again, you play it over. It looks weirder and weirder and weirder. But in the moment, maybe it doesn't. But you look at it over and over and over, and it's not crazy to think what I'm saying. That's how that all happened. You just never know. You wake up. Trust me, I still got those things done, but I had a list of things to do on Monday, and they all got pushed to the side because of this this message Kelly sent me. You just never know when things like that are going to happen. And so there you go. What's everybody saying here? I've been talking for a while now. Wow, a lot of let's see. That Brian video had me think. What's this? That Brian video had me thinking. Hi, all the way from New Zealand. Hello. Yep. Amy says the crop made so much difference. They lost a huge part of it. You were right. They should have released the full version. Marlene says just got done with pizza. It was really good tonight. Awesome. Got in on time. Yes, you did. Exactly agree. They should have never edited a video. Everything. Sometimes cops try too hard to just publish the proper video so we can see the whole story. Yeah, they do. You could say that on a lot of disappearances we've covered, like Stephen Kocher's everything. All we ever see is him walking down that street and then him on the other street. Now, we know there's other video. There has to be other video of cars, other cars going by and everything else. We never get to see that stuff. Might be helpful. Betty says, I wonder if the cops even ever noticed before now, or they've been viewing the cropped version. Betty, I would say that the cops have not noticed that. I will tell you this, the private investigator who has watched that video many times, he admitted on Monday that he had never noticed it. He was pressed up against her in an odd way. Yeah. Sandcat, Ed, do you think whoever released the cropped video overlooked the movements of Brian's hand? I can't imagine that it was overlooked. Sandcat, what I think happened is that in disappearances, people who don't know what they're doing, editors of TV programs, for example, they get so caught up, they think that they're Martin Scorsese. we got to get in on the face. We got to zoom in on the face and everything else. No. We don't care about that. We know it's the missing person. You don't have to convince us of that. This isn't Tom Cruise. We know that that's Brian Shaffer. Zooming in on it doesn't do anything. But they're too caught up in movie type editing and everything. Just let it play. Just let it play raw. It's okay. I'm sorry that you don't get to edit Marvel movies. I'm sorry that all you're working on true crime programs. I'm sure you're making a lot more money working CGI and everything for Disney. I get it. But you have to keep in mind, we don't necessarily care about a missing person's face. As long as we know it's the person, you don't have to zoom in. Now, maybe a question, is it the person? That's different. That's different. But in this situation, everybody knew it was Brian. There's no reason to zoom in. Just let it the way it is. That's what happens, Sandcat, in my opinion. Do you think that the woman would have come forward to the police about being in her purse? I can see reasons why she wouldn't, Sabrosa. I can see reasons why she. Amy says it was weird energy. Marlene, it did look like a pickpocket. I'm too convinced he dropped something in her purse. Yes, he put something in her purse, but why? Well, I guess it just depends on what you think he dropped in there. Wow, I bet he did. It makes sense. Valerie says, Jasmine, to throw off his tracks, he did not want to be found. Marlene, I was thinking the same thing about her coming forward with the phone. Betty, if it was his phone, was the battery dead? The face never lit up when he had it in his hands. Betty, it's so quick. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it was dead, because we have to remember something else. The reason I, once again, also think it was his phone, that happened at 1:55 a.m. 7 minutes later, I forget her name, the girl that was with Clint, this girl and Brian all got there together. That girl tries to call Brian 7 minutes after that video, and Brian doesn't pick up. That's also why I think it's Brian's phone. Did Brian know the girls well? Sandcat, he kind of knew them. The one girl knew Clint, his friend Clint, somehow. Once again, I'm not an expert there, but I would not say, Sandcat, that they were total strangers. I would not go that far. Yep, her mom lives in Hilliard. I looked it up. Sandcat, nope, at least not. That's not true, Amy. They were not total strangers. So for some reason, one of them, it very well may be the girl with the purse, kind of knew Clint through class or some type of thing, an assistant or something like that. Why would he give his phone to somebody he didn't know very well? Well, just some people might say that he was trying to mislead people. No problem. I think he knew his friend was at her teacher's assistant at the school or something. Yeah, she must have heard it or felt it vibrate or spring her. Sure, I'm sure. I would have creeped out if I found a random phone. Me too. Imagine when you finally found his phone in your bag. Yeah, you'd be terrified. Maybe the purse girl did come forward to police and the police chose to keep it under wraps. It would tilt to the theory that Brian didn't want to be found. Sabrosa, all I can say is that Kelly has had a chance to talk to purse girl a couple times. She's never said anything like that. It very well may be true, but that is not what she said. In fact, I think I can go this far. I hope Kelly doesn't mind it. The purse girl actually hung up on Kelly once when Kelly asked a particular question. Thanks, Sabrosa. I like how your mind works. Well, maybe only when I'm not having panic attacks, Sabrosa. Maybe she panicked. Yep. Did Brian put his number in her phone? Some people say that's true, but I still don't think how that then translate to him having her phone and slipping it in her purse behind her back. Why didn't he just hand it to her? I thought I remembered Kelly mentioning them exchanging numbers, but I'm sure Haley, you're right. But I don't think it explains why he would slip the phone back into her purse secretly. Because if that's what it is, that's what happened. Who does that? If somebody gives me their phone, oh, give me your phone, just type it in here. I hand the phone back to the person. I don't wait for the woman to turn around and get, slip it into her purse. Because eventually she's going to ask me for it anyway, right? Can't forget what Alexis said about the phone. Maybe you need to remind us, Cherie. Ed, that sounds close. I think it's viable. I think that some people would say it doesn't make any sense. I think it's a viable theory that she finds the phone a month later in this purse that she hasn't used since that night. I mean, hey, for us guys, how many times have we worn a pair of pants, brought them home? Maybe they're not dirty, whatever. You hang them back up. You don't wear them for a month. You put them back on. And you're like, oh, $20. How many times have you done that in their life? Many times. This would be like that. He slips the phone in. He goes missing. She doesn't know it's in there. She goes out. She has this purse, and she's going through it, or maybe just finally cleaning it out a month later, and she's like, this phone, who the heck's phone's this? Plugs it in. It starts beeping again, and boom, it's Brian Shaffer's. And she's, oh my gosh, it's Brian Shaffer's. I got to unplug it, and turns it off again. I would absolutely love it if Ed solved the Brian Shaffer missing persons case. Sub Rosa, here's what I can guarantee. Somebody else is going to solve it. I'm more than willing to help, but I have a lot of other things going on. I'm more than willing to help Kelly. We talk a lot behind the scenes, throwing ideas back and forth, opinions, theories, everything else. But it's perfectly fine with me if she solves it. Totally fine. Totally fine. Marlene says, I did hear the interview when Kelly did the interview with one girl. I know both of their names. Most people do. But I just did not want to get into that in that video. Amy says, yeah, that video makes more sense. Made me think more about it, maybe walking away, but it's all very odd. It is. She could have been spooked. Yes. For anyone who hasn't seen the video, it's just watching it. Yeah, go watch the video. It's gotten, for our channel, it's gotten quite a few views. Did Purse Girl know Brian has a girlfriend? That is, I don't know about that. I don't know. Delane says it's hard to get a good overview of what's going on when video is cropped, clipped, display zoomed, etc. I think we should be privy to the video and is with it, bring it manipulated if pertinent to do so. I think so. What do you think about it? I think it was, I do think it's his phone. I do think it's his phone. That's, like I said, it's the only thing that makes sense. Unless it was like something illegal, like drugs or something. But that, I don't know if that makes any sense either. It certainly doesn't make any sense that it was her phone. It makes more sense. If we were going to talk about phones, it makes more sense it was his phone, not her phone. Just from the standpoint of secretly putting it in her purse. Yeah, Meredith and Clint, yes. Julie says, I love shoulder bags. Well, yeah, if someone hands me their phone, I say, do it yourself. Yeah. Delane getting back to the panic attacks for 2 weeks now. I'm sorry to hear that, Delane. Yeah, sorry to hear that. Subrosa said, if Purse Girl came forward, she would insert herself smack dab in the middle of this. I can see her keeping quiet. Yeah, because you have to think she would have his phone. The police are asking, well, where's Brian? And she's going to say, I don't know. And she would be telling the truth. But then she also has to explain how that phone got in her purse without her knowing. It gets a little difficult. And maybe that's what Brian wanted. I don't know. Gotta watch the video, Julie. Yes. Charlie says, Shree says, Alex said the phone rang and rang for months. Then a few months later, the phone rang and someone answered the 3 rings. Even Verizon weighed in saying it was odd. Mm-hmm. Mm. Maybe it was because someone had the phone. Yeah. Shree's on to what saying. There are just other things that go along with somebody else having the phone. Now, I don't think to this point anybody thought it was one of those girls. Maybe, of course, some people thought it was Clint. Some people thought it was Meredith, that they did something to Brian, or it was somebody else. He was walking home. He gets attacked. Somebody takes his phone. They dispose of his body. They have his phone. All sorts of theories have been thrown around the 15 years. Nobody thought that one of those girls could have had his phone. Why? Because once again, how would they have gotten it? Well, now maybe we know how they would have gotten it. And they didn't, and the one girl didn't know she had it. You also have to keep this in mind, although I can't think of a disappearance off the top of my head. Missing people are leaving their phones in other people's cars and houses all the time. And so we just have to think of it. He just left his phone in her purse. That's all. I wonder why it was taking 15 years to get this zoomed out video. It's something I think I can say. I think Kelly's working on it right now, trying to figure that out. As I've said, going back to May when I interviewed Kelly, I think they should release, I know the Columbus police have it. They should just release all the video from that night. Whatever cameras were working, I know they still have them. Let's just see the whole thing. Because here's what I know. If this is actually new information, if I, on Monday, after being told by Kelly, if I actually saw that and discovered something new that nobody has seen before, then I know for sure that cop who says he took all that video home and watched all of it, he didn't do that. He didn't do that. So that's the Brian Shaffer saga. It's like 45 minutes of me talking about it. I knew it would take a long time, but that's how it all happened. It's on this channel right now. You can watch it, of course, for free. Watch it as many times as you'd like. As usual, I don't have the comments on because we don't like dealing with trolls. I don't have time for that. But if you'd like to comment, come into the discussion group on Facebook, or you can email me, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. We can surely have some good discussions about it. But I'm not opening up the comments for that video because it'd just be like any other video that gets posted. It's just too many idiots. Delane says that the girl did answer the phone. It was probably in hopes it was Brian and then hung up when it wasn't. Sheree says, I think Delane brings up the big issue. If they wanted the public's help, they should have show all of it to us. They obviously haven't figured it out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to some other things. If you're just getting in late I was just talking about Brian Shaffer. You'll have to go back to about 45 minutes ago to when I started. Let's move on to this. Heidi Planck, this woman who disappeared in California back in, it was now October. They're now looking in a landfill. And it does seem that she knew someone in that building. I will tell you, one of the big problems I have with the databases I use to track down people and where they're living, it's hard to track down people who live in apartments. I would love to find a database out there somewhere where you could automatically find out all the people living in a certain apartment building, just all of them listed. Very difficult to do. And if you can do it, it's like a Rube Goldberg machine trying to figure it all out. Because what usually happens is that you can find an address and it'll give you people at that address, but it won't list you like apartment 101, apartment 102. It won't do that. Oh, you sent me a text via text. Let me look this up. Now, this is breaking news on here. Yeah, massive. Going to read this, Tree, if you don't mind. A massive search for missing mom Heidi Planck at a Castaic landfill. I know somebody who lives in Castaic. Planck was last seen October 17th, and since then, investigators found evidence that led them to believe she died in a high-rise apartment building in downtown LA. Just don't know who she knew in that building. Of course, her dog was found in that building, and now we also know that this car that they were looking for, this is how they mislead everybody. I hate it. Here, her Range Rover, Land Rover, it was in the parking lot of that apartment building the whole time. Police, you're not doing yourselves any favors when you do this. I'm going to keep saying it. Not to brag. I know more about disappearances than all of you do. Don't do this. Don't mislead us. Just say you found the car right away. Please. Kathy, your car was found in another residential parking area a few blocks away from the Hope and Flower Street side. Huh. I read something different than that, Kathy. In that video, she turns too much and Brian doesn't extend his arm out enough, I believe, to drop anything in her purse, screaming. Just my opinion. Still possible, of course. Screaming, I would remind you that those cameras distort distances because they're those fisheye cameras that probably things are much closer to each other than they appear. And we really can't see where her purse is. But I've been testing this at home. Sharino or Kelly, I was talking to Kelly about this. I've actually been kind of doing this like this in the mirror. And certainly Brian was taller than I am and certainly had longer arms than I do. I think it's certainly possible. Certainly possible. But see, I read, Kathy, that her car was found right in the same building. That's weird. But it does seem, though, that they've known where her car was for a while now. Now, how could she have been killed in a high rise and how did they get her out of her? Well, I know for me, there is a trash chute. If I go out my front door, which is right there, there's a trash chute 7 steps away. And I am the only person usually who lives on this floor of this condo building. And so she gets killed on a certain floor. She gets cut up in pieces, and little by little, you take it out to the trash chute and dump it down there, dump it down there, dump it down there. That's certainly one way they could have gotten her out of there without anybody seeing. And in fact, that would be a great plot for a mystery movie or a mystery novel or something. I wonder if that's ever been conceived as a plot as part of somebody trying to pull off a crime. I know it's never been on a Columbo episode. But so they're now looking in a landfill. But she did know somebody in that apartment building. I know that a lot of people are going to be going toward the idea of a relationship or something, but being that she left at the seems like she was kind of crazy anyway. But being that she left at the halftime of her son's football game, this feels more like drugs. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, really, if it was a relationship thing, are we really saying that her lover or somebody couldn't wait another hour just to wait until the game was over? So I've tried to figure out who this person could be that lived in the building, and just no luck doing that. No luck doing that. Of course, I got a lot of things to do anyway. But so that is an update on Heidi Planck's disappearance. Now, what if they don't find anything in this landfill? I don't know what to tell you then. I really don't. Maybe I don't know. We all know how things can seem like they're going to be solved and do something and nothing happens, and then a disappearance stays unsolved for 20 years. Let's hope it's not that. Kathy says, I just read it before 6 p.m. Maybe what I read about car is inaccurate. You very well may be right, Kathy, but We know how stories, different sources can be wrong. But I think either way, I think it's clear to me that they found her car fairly quickly. Screaming says, I understand. Very good point, Ed. I review surveillance footage all the time. Part of my job. Interesting. And the footage is distorted. Amy, thank you, Screaming. Amy, the Heidi story is creepy. Her boss seems sketchy to me. Certainly. And the legal issues he was going on stealing the money. Kathy says, I think she was going to the building to buy drugs. I think that makes the most sense for what we know at this point, Kathy. Maybe it was a lover's quarrel. Maybe could have been some other woman. She was going to confront some other woman about something. Could be that. And then something happens. This other woman kills her. And Cherie says, I heard a friend say they found 40 messages from a woman that lives at that building on her phone. Thank you, Cherie. Drugs or job-related meeting, probably with somebody not on company payroll. Oh, the same woman that found the dog. Cherie says, I think she was lured with intent. Wow. I just hope this doesn't become another Missy Beavers situation where she's, remember Missy Beavers, still unsolved, murdered in that church, still unsolved. And I think, including myself, thought, oh, this is going to be solved within hours. And here we still are. It seems like, well, this should be easy to figure out. I mean, surely there's some sort of forensics and who would have been able to buy that equipment that person was wearing and everything else. And it's still unsolved. So I hope it doesn't turn into a situation like that. Moving on. Did an Unfound Now. That's another confusing one out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Dwayne Selby, Jack Grimes, Shannon Miller, and Glenda Parton. Jack Grimes was found. He was murdered. The other three are still missing, although it is unclear if Shannon Miller is connected to the rest of them or not. This is a series of disappearances and a murder that happened in Oklahoma in late October. So if you haven't checked that out now, that's this month's Unfound Now, or November's Unfound Now. And it's one of the more complex ones, I guess, that I've covered on that program. It's right here on the Unfound Podcast Channel. Newsletter came out. I've already talked about that a couple times. It's plausible given the shady company or name being all over it. Yeah, Sandcat, I have to laugh that the private investigator missed the hand movement. Isn't that his job to notice these things? Well, Sandcat, you mean regarding Brian Shaffer, it is, but and I'm not actually, I'm not a huge fan of private investigators, but we just don't know what video he saw, Sandcat. If he's been looking at the same cropped video like the rest of us for the last 15 years, then you can't blame him. Kathy says Shannon Miller looked like he was about 35 to 38. Yeah. Jack Grimes was in his 70s. He was murdered. Dwayne Selby, who they lived together, he's in his 50s. Glenda Parton's 80 years old. And just don't know what went on there. A couple cars found abandoned. It's just hard to really say. I think there are a lot of different possibilities regarding that. Business deal gone wrong. I just don't know. All I do on those Unfound Now is present the facts. And even at the end, I said that I'm open to a lot of different possibilities regarding what happened there. But please check it out and judge for yourself. Next, I just wanted to send my deepest sympathies out to the mother of Stormy Dorsey and Brandon Williams. You'll remember this goes way back to 2017. I covered Brandon's disappearance. He was riding a bus from Salt Lake City back to Key West here in Florida, and he disappeared somewhere in between, seemingly in Nashville, but could have been in Atlanta. But his sister Stormy was the guest way back in 2017. And she has had some health issues since then. She had a tumor in her brain, and she has recovered from that. but her, Brandon and Stormy's mother died. Dee Dee Bown died within the last week to 10 days. And I think I only spoke to Dee Dee a couple times, and that would have been maybe twice. Once before the episode came out, and then I had done some additional work for them. I got somebody to help out a little bit behind the scenes with Brandon's case, and I spoke to her then too. I only had a couple talks with her, and that was even with Stormy on the line as well. But Dee Dee died of cancer, and she was buried recently. In fact, her funeral, the ceremony was live streamed on Facebook. Unfortunately, I could not watch it, but very sad. I realized that technically she was never a guest on Unfound, but any of these deaths like this affect me. As I've said with the guests who have passed away, that each one of them hits me as hard every time. And I feel like, yeah, did I let them down? They left this earth without knowing what happened. And of course, there are some faiths out there that believe they now do know what happened. But then there are other beliefs just think that, once we die, that's it. I'm not here to get into all of that, but I just try to stick to it in the material world. And it hurts me every time that a guest, a family member, mother, father, child that dies before they can find out what happened to their missing loved one. It just, and the issue with Brandon's, if some of you don't know that episode, once again, we're going back to 2017. It's a tough one. Brandon had a lot of things going on. And on top of that, he was riding a bus from Salt Lake City to Key West. And, the belief is that he got off the bus in Nashville and just walked off. Unfortunately, though, early on, it was believed that he actually made it the whole way to Atlanta. But then, I don't know, Greyhound or whatever kind of checked their records and no, you never got back on the bus in Nashville. And then we had this phone call that, if you remember, that Brandon was in a relationship with this much older guy in Key West. And that guy said, yeah, he got a phone call from a certain number in the Nashville area. And I did some research into that number, and now it's like a spam phone number. At one time, it had been connected to a law firm in this building that's not too far away from the Greyhound bus and depot. And I actually tracked down the guy who was in that office, and and I believe him when he says, you know what, I just don't remember that at all. And plus, it was like on a Saturday or a Sunday when the law firm wouldn't have even been opened. Would have been open. It's a tough one. It's just totally, totally hard to say. So, Stormy, and the rest of your family, have my deepest, thimpest sympathies regarding your mother's death. Seems to be something going on with Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, but I've only been able to casually see it. I know a little bit. You posted something. Somebody else has posted something about, is there something going on here? They're going to be doing a search, or a warrant was denied. Certainly seems to be something going on here. Unfortunately, who has his sticky little fingers in that disappearance as well? Phil Klein. So I'm not sure what to make of it. So I'm just not going to say too much about it right now. What's everybody saying? Yeah, Delane, have they ever found who the Range Rover was registered to? I've not heard anything. Delane, I don't know if there's any reason to believe it wouldn't be registered to her. Now, of course, my interpretation of Range Rover owners is they usually don't buy, they lease. So probably the owner of it is probably the finance company or Land Rover or something like that. But registered actually the license plate and everything. It would make sense that it was in Heidi's name, but maybe some guy bought it for her. I don't know. Julie, I still like it when your podcasts allow comments, though. Your stuff is really good. Julie, Julie Strom, I appreciate that. But on YouTube in particular, it's just YouTube does nothing to help you to try to manage and keep trolls away and everything else. They do nothing. So it would, as many videos as we post and the controversial nature of what we do, and it brings out a lot of kooks. And so, for example, John Lorden, he can do that because his show is a YouTube show. He doesn't have a podcast, everything. Unfound is an audio program. In fact, for example, a lot of podcasts don't even have YouTube channels. They don't even have them. Unfound is one of the rare ones that does. But so John Lorden, he allows comments and everything because that's where he is 100% of the time. That is not where I am or any of my students are 100% of the time. And I'm not going to go on there and see all kind of crazy comments because a lot of these disappearances bring up conspiracy theories. And even in here, before we even logged in tonight, as Shree was already in here, we had some troll before I even started the show. It's crazy. Is Phil Klein a cop? He wishes. Charlie, there are two words we don't say in my house. One is Phil, the other is Klein. Delane says in the beginning it said they couldn't find it registered in California. No, okay. So I just really don't know. I will say that I sent a message to Paula Filter, who was the guest for the Molly Miller Cold Haynes episode. She has not gotten back to me yet. One more thing, and then I will talk about Friday's episode. This Dale Wheeler guy, I posted this in the group. I hope all of you saw it. From Morrisville, North Carolina. On November 12th, his car was found wrecked into a trailer. Pretty decent wreck. And he was not there. Gone. There was blood in the car. Nobody could find him. They went looking for him. Nothing. Just gone. Kind of like Jason Landry. Well, out of nowhere, 17 days later, 2.5 weeks later, he comes stumbling in and shows up at his house. Seems to be dehydrated, kind of still seemingly a little woozy and everything else. And he tells this story about, he wrecked his car. And he was walking home. He made it almost the whole way home. Then figured out he had forgotten his phone back at the car. So he turned around to go back to his car and then got lost for 17 days. What are we supposed to make of this? The big question is, why did he wreck in the first place? That's the big question for me. Why did he wreck in the first place? And 17 days, none of you, not me, nobody would want to go without food for 17 days. Is he saying that he, because it seems to me that when people go missing like that, as we've talked about many times, the first thing people do is they go and check, is the person's bank account being used? Credit cards being used? ATM being used. And it seems to me that we're going to allow that everything. That they would have checked that and seen, oh, you know what? He showed up at McDonald's. They go to McDonald's. Did this, have his picture? Did this guy come in here a couple hours, yesterday? And it doesn't seem like they did that, or there were no records. So how was he eating for 2.5 weeks? What was he doing for food? What was he doing for water? You would die. I think what I'm saying is there's something about this story that doesn't smell right. Now, granted, a few years ago, maybe some of you will remember, there was this guy from Canada, a Canadian, who came down to like New Hampshire. He disappeared. And then out of nowhere, they found him in California. He called his wife from California. He said he didn't know how he got there. Now, given that I just had a panic attack yesterday, I can understand how somebody might lose their mind for like a half hour. But for days, going across the United States, not remember doing so, or not, can't. Did I take a bus? Did I fly? How did I hitchhike? How did I get there? It does stretch the imagination at least a little bit. I think there's probably more to this Dale Wheeler story. Now, would like to kind of learn something from this. Can this be applied to Jason Landry's case, where he also wrecked, and of course he is still missing? It's been almost a year now. But there's something about this, as everything is saying. It does sound, was he drinking and driving and didn't want to get caught? And then was he holed up in some hotel for a while and, wanted to claim? Now, there was blood in the car. I mean, there was some sort of injury there. But how did that get fixed? I mean, it was bad enough to cause bleeding in a car wreck. I don't know if that's something that's going to heal itself. I mean, he certainly could have had a head injury. Certainly. It's just unclear how he would have managed his life. I mean, just because you have head injury doesn't mean you don't need food anymore. You still do. You still need water. It was a little chilly there in North Carolina. He was bleeding. Was he doing, as everything said? I know you got retracted, but I'll say it. Was he doing drugs? And he wrecked and didn't want to get caught. Was he drinking and driving? Didn't want to get caught. I have to say that I'm much more open to that at this time than any story that he's telling. Sharon, thank you for your contribution. You're very generous, Sharon. Now, where can I find you? I don't know exactly what that means, Sharon, but if you need to send me a message, that unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Now where can I find you? I'm in a lot of different places. Let me see, going back up here. Did Persko have a boyfriend, a jealous boyfriend that didn't like Brian's attention on this girl? Sandcast, I believe she was single. In fact, she had made a couple statements to Kelly that would lead me to believe that. Trolls tend to comment in the replays. Best to close commenting after the live show. Who is this? I'm lost now. Dale Wheeler, Delane, was a story I posted in the group. He had a car wreck and then turned up 17 days later. Julie says people can die after 3 days without water. No one counts at 17 days. Yeah, I agree, Julie. May have been on stuff he shouldn't have been. Maybe, it's imaginary. I'm leaning that way too. Julie, country song here for sure. Shree, I just learned about Stephen Kubacki missing 14 months. I would need to know more about that. Maybe you can send me something, text me something, or I'd certainly like to read about that, Sheree. So you can all check that out. Dale Wheeler, Wheeler, from Morrisville, North Carolina. His car was found wrecked on November 12th, and I don't know where he showed up back at his house on November 29th. So what are we doing this Friday? I will tell you that the interview for this Friday's episode has still not been done yet. It's going to get done hopefully tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern time. I have no reason to think that it won't. But our guest, I think, has been sick, and she's going to try to do her best for Unfound tomorrow. But we are going to be covering, hopefully, and once again, if she doesn't feel like doing it, I will put something together. Probably, I actually already have an old episode picked out for Friday. It's a disappearance that hardly ever gets mentioned. You know, when I've gone to schools and making comparisons and everything else, it's a disappearance that has rarely gotten mentioned, and I feel bad about that. So if we can't make this interview happen tomorrow, then on Friday, we're going to revisit, like I said, just a missing person who I would certainly like her disappearance to be known a little bit more. It just doesn't get mentioned a lot in a lot of the work that we do because it's just kind of unique. But tomorrow, I'm planning to interview the mother of Allie Lowitzer. Her name is Joanne. I know this is a fairly well-known disappearance. It's 11 years old. She went missing on April 26th of 2010. I realize that many other programs have covered disappearance. Disappeared has covered her disappearance. And I know that the investigation is, even though this happened in Texas, has gone the whole way to Ohio with allegations that she might have been sex trafficked. On the interview outline, we will be talking at least a little bit about that. If you aren't familiar with Allie's disappearance, she was at school. She was riding the bus home. She got permission from her mother once she got off at the bus stop, which was very, very close to her house, to walk to her job, which was about a quarter mile away, to get her paycheck. And then she said she would come home. She certainly did get off at the bus stop, but she never ended up at her employer to get her check, and she was never seen again. And not sure what the title of the episode is going to be right now. I have a lot of the episode already written, what I'm going to say and everything, but I'm not sure what the title is. So that's going to be a surprise for all of you on Friday. This is not unusual. It's a very difficult time of year when you interview people for programs, around Thanksgiving and Christmas. So this is why things are a little unique this week. Usually, if this was just a regular time, I'm sure that Joanne and I would have done this interview sometime last week. But this is just how it goes. But like I said, I have a backup plan. Either way, there will be an episode on Friday. But the plan right now is to interview her tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern time, a.m. in the morning. And it's the disappearance of Allie Lowitzer. And I'm not sure how much new information is going to be covered in this interview, but the way Unfound does things, that I think we do things in a way that frames a disappearance that's very easy to understand. And in fact, in talking to Joanne again, I talked to her way back in like 2017 or something, and then we reconnected recently. I have to tell you that I think that the answer to this disappearance is still in Spring, Texas. I think that going to Ohio and wherever else, I think that there was a little bit of a wild goose chase. At least the way I now look at the facts, now that I have 5 years of experience and looking at what she and I talked about back then, what we've talked about recently, I think the answer still is in Spring, Texas. So There you go. That's all I have. That is the show tonight. That's it. I got nothing more on the on my agenda here. So what do I talk about tonight? Talked about my dad's 85th birthday, my panic attack. I'm feeling fine now though. Disc golf, of course. Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great one. My football picks are doing spectacularly. We talked about some of the swag that I got right there. The Beatrice Viela poll, Mike Moran, the Shaffer video, which took up 45 minutes. Heidi Planck, Unfound Now, the newsletter. Look for it in your inbox. Brandon Williams, mother dying. Molly Miller, Colt Haynes. Took some questions. And we also talked about Dale Wheeler. So there you go. And I'll be seeing you. You'll be hearing me on Friday, one way or the other. And then some of you for the think tank, we'll be doing a think tank. If we cover Allie's disappearance on Friday, I mean, if we don't cover it this Friday, it'll probably certainly get done next Friday. Or we'll do a think tank on this old episode that I will replay with new commentary, of course. Good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, especially Sandcat from New Zealand. Love it. And Sharon, thank you for the super chat contribution tonight. Good night.